suggested that you enter your full name as your ID on Zoom. Minutes, approval of minutes for May 2024.
Move approval.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Appointments, recognitions, and
You're abstaining, correct?
Yes.
appointments, recognitions, and resignations. Request appointment of Georgie Ann Sneed for the Economic Development Committee as Chamber of Commerce representative to the committee.
Move approval.
Second.
All in favor? Accept resignation of Griffin Costello Sanders as firefighter EMT as of May 27, 2024.
Move acceptance.
Second.
All in favor? Consent agenda, Shellfish Committee minutes from March 21, 2024.
Move approval.
Second.
All in favor? Any select board reports?
Well, Rick made a good suggestion. Are you our new reporter?
Oh, that would be me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What's your name?
I'm Jack Stroud.
And do you know who we all are, Jack?
No, I don't.
Well, we'd like to introduce ourselves to you. You're gonna be attending our meetings on a regular
Yeah,
basis.
I appreciate that, yeah.
Yeah.
Where are you from?
I'm from the island.
Okay, but what are you
I,
reporting for?
Oh, for the island.
Okay, that's what I thought.
Yeah.
So you are
oh, I'm Martha Dudman.
Nice to meet you.
Rick Moores, Jeff Wood,
Wendy Littlefield.
John McCauley.
Bill Lund, town manager.
Actually,
Okay, say them all real fast. No, I'm kidding.
Well, you might as well know who else here that you may hear from.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, Claire Wolfo, town clerk.
I'm Brian Henkel, I'm the public works director. I'm Kyle Avila, I'm the assessor slash IT.
Welcome.
And I live there.
And there's Heidi.
Hey, that's Heidi over there.
It's just Heidi.
Good.
But if you do, you'll want to listen.
Yeah.
Welcome.
thank you.
Any other reports?
I can't think of it.
Unfinished business. Public space special event application permit 7-2024 Mount Desert Elementary School 8th grade promotion. June 6, 2024, Northeast Harbor Vale, Maine. Request extension of time of event from 4 to 6 p.m. to 4 to 7.
Move approval.
Yeah.
Second.
it's
Any discussion? All in favor?
Like we would know.
New business, Dobbs Productions Inc. Request to use public access channel 1301 for summer 2024 and winter 2025.
This is the name.
Yeah.
That move approval.
Second.
You all in favor? Public space special event application 10-2024 wedding Summersby Park Fridays. June, September 21, 2024, 12 p.m. to 5:30 p.m. Lori Baker.
Move approval.
Second. It says Fridays. Is that
Yeah,
just a
that's
typo?
a typo.
Okay.
Just one Friday.
Yeah.
It's September Saturday.
Oh, what did I do?
Saturday. Oh, Saturday, September 21st.
Yeah.
So no Friday.
And not
No
June.
June.
No June, that's why.
We have a little
Oh,
typo
okay,
in our-
okay.
Big
Because
typo.
Friday is in
You're
June.
Lori?
Yeah, I'm like.
Congratulations.
Congratulations, yeah, that's wonderful.
That's a
Oh.
lovely
That's a
spot for
beautiful
a wedding.
It is a nice spot.
Mhm.
My
Move,
apologies for the error.
it's
Oh,
fine.
it's fine.
Move approval.
That's okay, Friday. Thank you.
Second.
All in favor?
Excellent.
Let's see, review and approve authorizing Public Works Superintendent Ben Jacobs to solicit bids for a new model year 2023-24 Ram 5500 truck with dump body and plow equipment.
But this is a regular replacement, not like some of the others that we've had recently. This is a 10-year-old vehicle.
So CIT.
Yeah, part of the CIP.
Move approval.
Second.
All in favor?
Thank you.
Review of ordinances per section 5.3 of Mount Desert Charter. Floodplain management. That's amendment 2016.
Well, I looked at in the packet, indicated that our CEO isn't recommending any changes, additions or deletions to what we're reviewing tonight. For what that's worth.
You're gonna move now?
So can we move
I
on?
would indeed.
Okay, so we would be moving floodplain management, a plumbing permit fee, sale of food and merchandise, single-use carryout bag, polystyrene foam food service containers, and quarry licensing ordinance.
Second.
All in favor?
Can we,
Uh,
it was
Okay.
moved by me,
Yeah.
the slate as presented.
Just, yeah, there was a second, and then can we, I just wanna just remind that we had discussed. Trying to generate some of the revenue that we are not going to be getting from short-term rental. Through permit fees and such, and I don't know if that's just to put it on the front burner. And something to consider with the plumbing permit fee. I don't know. If that's something we wanna talk about as a general rule or some later date.
Yeah, I think you should put it probably on the agenda, so anyone, some of the
Right.
public may want to. talk.
Yeah, I just hadn't seen that before, so I just wanted to make that comment.
Sure.
And I also think that, you know, you do your discussion, but it has to go to town meeting as an ordinance.
Okay, that's fine, I just.
And there's
remiss if
no-
I didn't say something.
No. Concern about the single-use carry, I mean, everybody's. Doing what they have to do to
I have heard
make
no
these ordinance,
complaints.
yeah. I have not either.
No.
Okay.
Okay. All in favor? Other business, Sterling, I think.
Yeah, I'd just like to take a few minutes to kind of go over, I went back to the advisory committee. Quarterly meeting today to do a follow-up. As you may know, that the lands committee last time took under advisement our request for a land donation from Acadia National Park to do the build out for the turnaround down at the landing. Do regret to say that they did not vote to honor that request. So that door is closed, the congressional delegation door is closed as far as doing the donation, so. It looks to me like that is going to be a dead end street, that if we want to proceed. With that particular project, we're probably going to have to entertain some sort of a land swap. Now, listen, could be some creative ways to do it, there may be some land. That is outside currently the town of Mount Desert, but within the town border that may become available. For us, maybe even by a donation. If that be the case, it sort of honors our initial attempt. Because we would not be changing the borders of the town of Mount Desert as they existed at that time. That would be essentially a pass through. So that's one possible avenue. The other is to do a traditional swap if there's a small piece of land that's available within the current borders of Mount Desert. I've been conversations with the park, I haven't identified any, so there may be one possibly way, there is. One piece of land that the College of the Atlantic owns. Landlocked near the fish house, the East Society Fish House, which would be approximately the same size. Maybe even a little smaller than what we're proposing. The problem with it, the park said that we'd look at it, but apparently it is got some environmental issues. So that they may not want to take it on even though it's there, but I had understood from sources in the past that the college might entertain. A donation back to the town, so of course, this would all have to go to town meeting. That would be, if the park would accept that, that would be absolutely ideal.
Yeah.
Because it would not be giving up anything we currently own in the passage, so I'm gonna pursue that. So the other thing today is that I was working on with them. With the advisory committee and going to the park. Something that you may have heard of. Called the dichotomous mandate, is anyone familiar with the dichotomous mandate, also known as the dual mandate or the dueling mandate? In other words, Acadia National Park, and any national park, has two core missions. One, obviously, to protect the natural resources of the lands in their stewardship, but the other one is a little more interesting, that they're charged with the responsibility of preserving the cultural and historic resources within their park borders. And so what I was talking to them about today is my position that I did not think that the National Park Service in this case was really doing their job in that regard to the village of Otter Creek. So if I get 5 minutes, I can just kind of, I don't want to give you a whole presentation, but here's what the rationale behind it was. We all know that the relationship between the National Park Service is complex. We also know that this relationship between communities, particularly rural communities, has been problematic in other areas around the country. Most of the national parks are not directly with communities. You know, there's a few like Cape Cod Seashore, and there's some down south, but most of them sort of sit off by themselves, and so this isn't an issue. But there are a few, and in spite of the fact that we're rural in nature, they call those urban parks. And the urban parks are those that are surrounded by communities, and that's where we would be classified. So they are charged with, of working with the communities that do border them and do surround them to try to preserve those cultural and historic, relationships. So what I was talking about them is the Otter Creek situation is particularly challenging because of its unique, because of the loss of its greatest natural resource, its harbor, during the 1936 Rockefeller acquisitions. No other village or town on this island that did suffer any such sort of a trauma is to having their harbor taken away from them. There also was, as I pointed out during my first presentation in February, there were a number of irregularities involved in that whole process. And the other part of it was that the town really dropped the ball in 1936. And why, I don't know, I've got speculation, but here's the deal, is the town put on its warrant an article to extinguish its right-of-way to the harbor in 1936. Now, the warrant committee of that time voted unanimously to recommend that be indefinitely postponed. And
That decision be delayed.
yes, in other words, that's a defeat. Indefinitely postponed is a defeat. It goes. By the time you get to town meeting, it passed without any opposition in that short period of time. Very suspicious. Also, there were allegations of irregularities, of voters being bussed in, employees of the Rockefeller business being, told how to vote, and there'd be people there watching. So it was a very, very difficult problem. But in spite of that, Rockefeller's attorneys told him that if that ever went to court, that vote would be overturned because of their judgment. The town had no right to extinguish a right of way down there. That was an illegal warrant article, yet the town never challenged it. Why? I mean, there's all kinds of strange things because, like I said, Rockefeller's attorneys told him it was pretty much a slam dunk that wouldn't happen. So anyway, that's why we have, or one of the reasons why we have, or that particular village has such a contentious relationship with the Park Service, because when I was growing up, there were a number of people alive that remembered that process and had always thought that it was kind of strange. So anyway, I just brought that out, that situation is particularly egregious. I said no other population center around MDI had such a traumatic experience. So going back to the dual mandate to conserve natural resources while simultaneously preserving the cultural and historic uses of the property. What that brings us to is they are by statute mandated to consider the views and opinions of communities in close proximity. Now, The Acadia Advisory Commission has a vital role in this process, because they consist of the representatives of those communities. So that they really should be able to have some sort of say, again, we're not talking now about the land acquisition, we're talking about a couple of other things. So the focal points that I tried to make during that presentation was Otter Creek Harbor, as we know, has limitations. At low tide, it's dry. But despite those limitations, prior to the 1936 acquisition, it was a working harbor with fishing and clamming activities. And if you go back into the 19th century, it had an active quarry, and it had schooners coming up into that inner harbor at the right tide, loading granite and taking them out. So it has a long history as a working waterfront. Right now, it does have one or two fishermen, so it is still doing a little bit of that. So what I was telling them, there is some commercial and recreational activity, mainly kayaking, but it is limited due to the inadequacies of the land in its current configuration. But if that should ever be remediated, excuse me, I'm having trouble putting hopefully I'm not having a stroke. I'm not putting it on.
We hope not.
But I'm having trouble framing some of my things here. Should that be remediated, we can't predict to what extent, to what degree commercial and recreational activities might be enhanced.
Right.
There's a very good opportunity that if we did that, that use would come back to some degree, but we can't quantify that, okay? So that would be an example of a cultural and historic resource that needs to be addressed by the park. They really need to do what they can in their power to have that function to some degree as it did prior to that acquisition. So they've, I think, totally failed in that regards. So I asked them to honor their responsibilities under the dual mandate. Mount Desert, and I mentioned that we have a feasibility study about creating enhanced vehicle access down there, and I told them it was not inexpensive, but it is doable, according to Greg Johnston, our engineer. It is permittable, and the project would be doable. So then the town ought to have the opportunity to decide whether they want to make that type of investment down there. And I think the park needs to do what it can to help us acquire that land reasonably, so that we can let the town make the decision once and for all whether to build that facility. But again, like I said, I told them it was expensive, but it was permittable and it is doable. So that would be a municipal decision.
So, excuse me, Derwin, you laid this out to the advisory.
And the
board today,
park administration,
today.
yes, today.
And their reaction was to,
To look at it. I mean, I was the very last person on the agenda.
so a decision hasn't been
No.
reached yet?
No, not on any of these. And then I asked them they should consider doing two other things. One would be to restore any village trails that existed prior to 1936 and they've fallen into disuse. And we have maps to show where those trails are. So that would be, again, a affirmation of the historical and cultural
Right.
resources. Then I asked for one other thing, I said two other things. One of them is rather whimsical, the other is fairly straightforward. I think they should undergo a vista clearing program so that from Grover Avenue, the harbor is visible. That was always visible from that location. So that should be restored, and that's something that they should be able to do. However, and I pointed out to them that the park wrote a letter in response to a request from George Mitchell, who had talked to Steve Smith about some of those issues down there. And I quoted one of the statements that the park superintendent had made along those lines. They referred that a lot of these things were not doable under public law 99/420 of 1986, which governs the management of the National Park Service. This is the paragraph that rather caught my attention. It says some of Mr. Smith's requests are in direct violation of park regulations such as clearing vistas. And I know because earlier in the meeting, they talked about some vistas that they need to trim. So I said, well, you know, I've looked through public law 99/420, 1986, along with other documents. And I said, I cannot find anything in park regulations that prohibit the clearing of vistas. I said, but again, I may have missed something, so if I am wrong, please send me a copy of the regulations that spell that out. So that was the other thing. And the last thing that I asked her, and this is the one that you may think is rather whimsical, but I think is rather important. I told them that in 1995, I visited the Nixon Library in Yorba Linda, California. And I was very curious is how they dealt with Watergate, because no history of the Nixon administration can be told without reference to Watergate. So when I went to the museum, I discovered that they had a full wing devoted to that. So they did address it because it was, you know, part of the history. So I said, I think basically then the park does an interpretive history through its visitor center about how the park was formed. I said, I believe that we should have the Rockefeller acquisitions, even though it is not one of the prettiest parts of your history. I think that should be spelled out in some detail in one of your visitor centers. There should be exhibits that tell that whole story. And I said, you know the whole story because it appears in one of your very own publications.
That's right.
The Working Waterfront of Otter Creek.
Yeah.
So there's no reason why that could not be more widely disseminated and become part of the whole historical record of the park, because the good parts and the bad parts, you can't tell a history by just, you know, making a hagiography out of it. It has to be accurate, it has to be true. So then I said, I will be back in September and we can talk about this some more. So
Nice.
do that.
Yeah.
So that was
Thank
my
you.
thing.
No, I really, that's,
Really, thank you.
Well, I was hoping you did because I did that more or less on my own, thinking that you probably.
Excellent.
no, I really enjoy, I mean, I haven't seen you spark
Oh, yeah.
that, this has
Yeah.
been since you first started talking about this, I really
Yeah.
enjoy watching you try to figure this all out.
Well, it is.
So
It's
you
great.
go.
It is really kind of fun, and I did have a good time with it. So I think that's something that we don't have to have federal legislation to do. This is something the park manager
Sure.
can do, so I'm going to be on their case. Again in September. I'll go back
Good.
and I'll go as often times as I have to, so.
That's
Well,
awesome.
good for you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Really
I hope
appreciate
you
that.
don't mind me taking.
No.
No.
So anyway, I thought it was a good afternoon. I think the park advisory members were interested. I think it held their attention. So
Yeah.
anyway.
Thank you very much.
So you're more than welcome.
Great.
Yes.
All right, well, that's a hard act to follow. Any
Let's spend some money.
any other business?
Feel bad.
No other business?
No.
Okay, treasurer's warrants, approval and signature, town invoice AP 2474 and AP 7475 in the amount of $178,768.51.
Approval and signature.
Second.
All in favor? Approval and signature state fees and payroll benefits, AP 2472, AP 2473, and PR 2427 in the amount of $266,743.
Move approval.
Second.
All in favor?
One abstention, please.
And acknowledgement, school invoices, school payroll and voided disbursements, PR number 24 in the amount of $200,841.34.
Move acknowledgement.
Second,
All in favor? Great, motion to adjourn,
so move.
Second.
all in favor?